everybody. Welcome. This conference is hosted by MS Focus, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. I'm your host, Deborah Foreman, Educational Programs Coordinator for MS Focus, and I'm joined today by Andrea and Emily Blossberg, who, along with our panelist, Allison Hitchcock, will be discussing extracurricular activities and how to make them MS-friendly. After their discussion, we'll open it up to your questions and comments. Now, I'd like to introduce Emily and Andrea from Mr. Oscar Monkey. Emily Blossberg is an MS patient and founder of Mr. Oscar Monkey, a pediatric MS organization that was formed with the vision to help reduce the life-changing realities of pediatric MS by providing age-appropriate resources, advocacy, and community. Emily was diagnosed with MS when she was 15 years old, though her symptoms started at a younger age. Emily is well aware of the challenges that MS presents to someone so young and has committed herself to her advocacy for pediatric MS, finding ways for kids and teens to connect and network across the US and the world, and supporting the pediatric MS community so no one has to feel the loneliness that she felt. Andrea Blossberg, Emily's mom, is no stranger to the MS world. Andrea's husband, Dean, was diagnosed with MS in 1998, and Emily was then diagnosed 13 years later. Andrea has been a caregiver for not only one, but two family members living with MS. Through Mr. Oscar Monkey, Andrea shares advice for other parents, assists in facilitating education and community building programs, and helps with the day-to-day operations of the organization. Andrea has a unique perspective, being a caregiver to an adult MS patient as well as a pediatric MS patient. She attends every appointment with Dean and Emily and stays informed and ensures that she provides the best support possible. We're pleased to have them join us to present this important topic. Emily and Andrea, thank you so much for being with us, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. And I also want to introduce Allison. Allison was diagnosed. What age were you diagnosed with MS?
I was officially diagnosed when I was 14.
14. And you are now?
I just turned 19.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Allison has been a part of a lot of the MS Monkey activities in the last 4 or 5 years, and we're thrilled to have this conversation with her. So as stated, we're talking about different extracurricular activities and how to make them MS friendly. Just going to school sometimes is extracurricular enough.
It is.
And what extracurricular activities were you? Let's talk about high school first. What ones were you involved in high school?
I think that the biggest one was definitely the volleyball team. So I played on my school's volleyball team there, and I also played for a travel volleyball team as well later in the year. So I was kind of doing volleyball year round. And then I was in a couple of different clubs and definitely some like harder classes that were kind of extras that you could add on to your schedule. That was the majority of it in high school for sure.
That's a lot.
For sure, definitely.
How did you keep up? Oh my goodness.
Barely. Yeah, it was hard.
So with all of these extracurricular activities, were you taking a full load of classes as well, or did you have a shortened schedule of classes?
I was taking a full load of schedule or classes. However, there were times where I wished that I had maybe shortened it a little bit to kind of accommodate those a little better. But yes, I was taking all the classes that I needed to.
Andrea, you looked like you had something to ask.
I was going to ask you the same question. So I'm sorry, I was trying to plug my computer in here. Emily, what extracurriculars were you involved in high school, both pre and post diagnosis?
Oh, let's see. Before diagnosis, well, it was middle school. I was in Lego League, student council. Middle school was so long ago. Lego League,
Piano lesson,
piano
dance.
lessons. I was yeah, dance and a lot with the church youth group. A lot of my extracurriculars were outside of the school setting when I was in middle school. But then in high school, I was really active in the FFA. My school was a large FFA chapter. I was in choir and theater, and I just did a lot of volunteer work with the school as well. Like if there was an event going on, I was pretty much always there helping to set up or helping to run the event, and then of course helping to clean up. I was usually one of the last ones to leave, which took a lot of time. Ironically, volleyball was one of the extracurricular activities that I tried but had to drop because I couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of energy involved in volleyball.
Yeah.
there is.
Yeah.
I think one of
So
the hardest parts was getting through the school day and then realizing, oh, I still have another 2 or 3 hours of activity.
Practice, yeah.
And then
yeah,
homework.
Yep.
or late night games,
Mhm.
or the bus ride to and from the game is so many, an hour and a half drive, or there a lot of work for that for sure.
Mhm.
Excuse me, Andrea, I thought of something funny because as Emily was trying to remember those different activities, you remember all of them because you probably drove her to all of them.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, I just had to say that.
So, okay, so now you've been diagnosed with MS and you're in high school, and both of you are in high school, fairly new in high school. Some things have to shift. Did anyone tell you you can't do something? You can't be in volleyball, or you can't be in the FFA, or did anyone just say, "Oh, you've got MS, can't do it"? How about
No.
you, Allison?
Yeah, nobody directly told me that I couldn't do it. However, my volleyball coach decided to sit down with me and have a conversation and tell me that she wasn't going to put me in to play as much because of my MS and because of the illness. And she was worried about what it would bring on if I played too much, which is considerate in a way, but of course, you just want to participate. I didn't want to be held back because of the MS piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Emily? Did you lose out on anything that you know of?
Not directly. I know I can remember like when I was in theater, I the casting group had said that they were considering me for one of the main roles in one of the plays. But then put me in a smaller role so that I wasn't required to be at every rehearsal. Which honestly I was just fine with because I knew that they were thinking about my energy as well. And I probably would have ended up saying, no, I need a smaller part. So but it was only because I had been open with them before that they knew to kind of take that into consideration.
Mhm.
So it's I feel like I'm saying the same thing as Allison, but in opposite way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I liked that they were thinking about it proactively. But maybe for Allison, you're like, yeah, but I kind of wanted to make that decision on my own.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
I know, being involved with some of the kids that Emily, that you and I work with, and Allison, the kids that you've met at camp, we've heard stories where certainly coaches or parents or even physicians have told kids not to be involved in certain sports or anything that's gonna overheat them. And so I know we have spent a lot of time looking into what can we do so that kids can participate? So what are some things that you both did so that you could participate? Whether it was, heat might be an issue, time might be an issue, energy is certainly an issue. Um, can you walk through some ways that you made extracurricular activities work for you?
Um, yeah,
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
one of my biggest issues, especially playing volleyball, that was kind of like my biggest thing I did in high school because it took so much of my time. But I remember the biggest thing that I did was just having like that action plan of, okay, so if I get really overheated, what is my next step? So some of those things included like a cooling vest. I had to, bring it up with like the referee so it was allowed. However, like most of the time they allowed it. And so if I got overheated, I would tell my coach like, hey, I need to take a break. So I would sub in with somebody and I would put my cooling vest on and just sit there for a few minutes and to help me cool down. Another thing that I did, another cooling technique, were the cooling towels. I also kept on the side of the bench for whenever I went over there. And definitely just plenty of cold water helped
Mhm.
me cool down. I was in a lot of, hot old gyms with
Oh,
really
sure.
no AC. So just all those cooling techniques really helped me a lot with the overheating.
Yeah.
There were two main things that I applied to be able to participate in extra activities. One of them was a lot of the activities that I was participating in would have meetings or practices during the lunch hour. I was in the National Honor Society, and they always had their meetings Wednesdays during lunch. So I never had to stay after school for that, which I was appreciative for. But then also I did change my class schedule to accommodate those other activities. So if I knew that, the winter musical is coming up and we're in trimester 2 that starts at the end of Thanksgiving and goes until spring break, I knew that, okay, I really want to be in theater, so I'm not going to take a first hour class so that I can get to school for second hour, and then stay that extra bit of time after school. That way I'm still kind of at school for the same amount of time, and I'm still getting all of the classes that I needed. I was able to take just study hall that first hour, and I had it worked out with my school through my IEP that I didn't actually have to be in study hall. I could be at home and then come in later on. And that was probably one of the most helpful things for me, is being able to have that flexibility in my class schedule.
That brings me to another question about your schedule. How were you able to reduce your workload? Did you have to take classes? Well, I know you did, but you had to take some classes, maybe independent study or over the summer. So looking at that possibility, how was that for you, being able to, or adjusting so that you could spread it out?
It was definitely a individualized system. So the way my school was broken down, it was 5 classes in a day, and we had trimesters, so we had 3 trimesters in a school year. And I think in the entire 4 years of high school, I only took 1, maybe 2 trimesters with all 5 classes. So usually it was only 3, sometimes it was 4. But with all of those other blanks within my schedule, I did take a lot of independent study classes. I took 11 classes with the help of my teachers, just meeting with them every couple weeks or touching base with them as I finished different projects for that class. And then they'd give me the next amount of work for the next part of the class. But it took a lot of self-regulation to be able to do that. A lot of classes over the summers. I went 5 years without taking a full break from schooling, because summer break starts and I'm working on my physics class over the summer. So there really never was a break until I actually graduated from high school and started to transition into college.
Were you able to do
Yeah.
that, anything like that, Allison?
So I was in high school when, the COVID pandemic started.
Oh, yeah.
And classes were starting to get, you weren't able to be in person to help, like if you had questions and such. So the classes were getting harder and it was getting more stressful. So I did end up having to go 1-to-1 my junior year, which was really helpful. So kind of not exactly the same situation, but I had I had maybe 2 classes a day. And I didn't have the same classes every day, which was nice. It was broken up, kind of like a college schedule almost. And I would go in to the district office and I would have 1-to-1 teaching with just one teacher for 2 teachers for all the subjects. They were assigned to different ones. So that was helpful in that sense. I don't remember if I had to do anything else, but I definitely taken incompletes a lot. In high school, I took a lot of incompletes at the end of the year, which really did help. So kind of going into the summer and finishing up what you need to do in the summer definitely helped a
Yeah.
lot. Yes.
That's
brings
great.
It
Go
brings
ahead.
a different feeling to the end of the school year. Like,
Mhm.
yay, I'm done going to school for the next few months, but I'm still working on schoolwork for the rest of the summer.
What I'm hearing though is that there are options, and talking with the school district, talking with the school, whether it's your principal or your dean or however your school system is set up, and being a willing participant and an active participant in your own education to make sure that you're getting the education you need while still fulfilling the requirements that they have. It's a big step. And also giving you the outlet to be able to do these extracurricular activities, which I think are, in my opinion, are equally important. And on some level, they're even more important. So anyway, I'm going through my list of questions over here.
Well, I'm just thinking, there might be questions about how can you take less classes, or how can you take an incomplete and finish the class over the summer. And I believe, or at least it was in my case, it all depended on my IEP. And an IEP it's a legal document that's created for a student. It's education or individualized education plan. And all of the teachers are required to follow it, as long as it's been properly established. And if you are like a pediatric MS patient, or you have any other chronic challenges that you're facing, IEPs are so helpful. They really help you succeed and continue to participate as a regular student.
And the best part about an IEP is I always thought of it as my backup plan. You don't necessarily need to use everything on the plan. It's just there just in case something happened. That came in handy a couple of times. So
Absolutely.
Very good point. Yeah. An IEP is one method. There's also the 504 plan, which is they're different in the requirements and working with your school district and their usually it's done through the special ed office, I believe. Again, depending on the structure of your school. It's well worth pursuing. I know some of the kids that we've spoken with have had trouble sometimes with schools helping them set these up, and it's because what we have also found is that many of our kids with MS are not falling behind in their schoolwork. They're actually quite brilliant. And so the school looks at their test scores and their performance and says, they're not needing any help. They're doing just fine. And what they see is the duck swimming on top of the water, and they don't see the feet paddling like crazy underneath, and the lack of sleep that you have, and the no life that you have, and all these other things. So it's a little bit of education that we need to sometimes help the schools to understand just how much work you're putting into those great grades that you're getting. So
Well, and there's a
don't give up.
lot of effort that goes on, as you said, you know, the feet paddling quickly. There's so much other effort that goes on behind the scenes. Yeah, I remember also throughout high school, if I knew there was something coming up after school, and my, I don't know, my history class just had work time or they were just watching a video, I would go lay down in the nurse's office and take a break during that time, because I knew that I wouldn't get anything out of work time in the classroom. Students are too loud. It's going to exhaust me more. And if the nurse's office was available, I could go in there and have the lights off and take a rest and conserve my energy for the rest of the day into after school activities.
I did exactly the same thing. Planning for like a longer game or a game further away, or if I was just not feeling it that day. Study halls and those classes that require a little less. I had just a pass that I would go into the nurse's office and they knew exactly who I was and what I was there for. And you just go right onto the back and lay down for a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. I joked with the nurse. I was like, "Can I just have a key to the room? Because like I'm here more than you are."
And if your room's not available, I'll just take the closet down the hall. That's just
And I
fine.
did.
Yeah.
I did so many times. I was like, which is there just like any room? It doesn't even have to, there can be brooms in the room. I just need a chair just in the dark.
Yeah, it's amazing, just those little bits of time can really help to recharge batteries and get you ready for the things that you really want to be a part of, or the things you really have to be a part of. It might be a big test coming up that you're saving energy for, or
It
that
takes
type of thing.
it takes a lot of individual thinking ahead.
Yes.
You know, looking at your surroundings and seeing, okay, all of these other people in my class they're being loud, there's music going on. Am I going to be productive or am I going to get exhausted? And determining that for yourself and then making the best steps for you.
Yes.
I agree. I think too that advocacy, you know, we've talked a lot about advocacy in our programs in the past, and again, it's learning to recognize what you need and learning to speak up for it in a way that is respectful of the teachers and the staff, but yet still is getting your need across in order for you to be able to succeed. So without abusing the system, which is so tempting sometimes when you have an IEP that's filled with all these accommodations, but just using what you need when you need it is, that's, you develop that respect between staff and student. So,
Well, and it also comes down to being trustworthy. If you're
Yeah.
taking advantage of certain things just so you can get out of doing a class project or something, then you're not using it right.
yeah. No. So what are some of the accommodations? We've kind of, we've talked about some things that you've done. Can we list some maybe specific accommodations that might be helpful so that we can conserve energy, or what are some things that would help you to get to that extracurricular?
I would say, so like I mentioned before, I had a pass that I would just get up and I would show my teacher and they would know exactly what it was, and I would just go straight down to the nurse's office, no questions asked. So that helped a lot. I also had access to the elevator if I needed to, which came in handy some days when I was just feeling real tired and didn't want to go up 4 floors because our high school was 4, 5 floors, depending on what classes you had. So that was definitely helpful. Extended times on tests. A lot of times if I had like 30 minutes to take a test, I would work my brain too much and I would just get tired from that.
Yep.
So having extended time on tests also was useful. I don't know. I'll try to think of more. I'm trying to think back to high school and not so much college, but those are the main ones that I can think of for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any to add to that, Emily?
Yeah, so Allison and I had a lot of the same ones, but then other ones that I had on mine, I was really aware of what around me took energy without even realizing it. So one of the things on mine was actually being able to turn the lights off in the classroom and just using the lights from the windows. Having that overhead light was really stimulating and took energy without me even realizing it. And if I wasn't able to turn off the lights, I was allowed to wear a baseball hat in school, just to block the light, or even sunglasses. I could wear sunglasses to block out some of the light. I mentioned earlier that I was able to create my own school day. So I was able to choose if I'm not coming in for first hour or if I'm leaving after fourth hour. There were actually some trimesters that I didn't have classes in the middle of the day, and I would go home and I would take a nap and I would come back. I was really, really thankful for all the flexibility that I had. The nurse's pass. You probably remember a lot more of my conversations than I do.
I think you've hit on a good share of them.
Yeah.
I think that all of those things contribute to extra energy for sure.
They're the other one that I thought of just based off of what Emily said. I mentioned earlier in the webinar that I'd have a lot of problems with like overheating and getting very cold easily. So the other one that really helped me throughout the day, I mean, I went to school in a high school that was over 100 years old. And it was like a brick building. It was very cold in places. It was very hot in places. So I think that the biggest thing that probably did help me was having access to a fan in every classroom, or access to a space heater in every classroom. So every classroom was provided with one of each of those. And if I was feeling very hot and overheated on whatever floor, I would just pull out the fan and have it right there in the classroom. And then vice versa if I was cold. So that was very helpful too.
That's awesome.
I just remembered another one as well. School lunch is like the actual lunch hour is chaotic. It's so chaotic. Sometimes you're waiting in the lunch line and you don't get food until the last 3 minutes of lunch. And then you have to eat everything really fast when you get back to class. And so there were times I was able to go up to the front of the line, get my food, and then I would actually bring my lunch tray to the nurse's office and eat my lunch in there. Again, it's a quiet environment, and I was able to take that little bit of time during the lunch hour instead of being in the chaotic lunchroom. In which there were people that were not happy that I was skipping to the front of the lunch line, but it was one of the accommodations that I had in place for me, and it helped me conserve my energy for the rest of the day and beyond.
Allison, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you brought that fan into the classroom, or it was probably hidden in the classroom somewhere, right? Or did you have to go to another one and get it?
It was in every classroom.
So when you brought out your heater, you brought out your fan, did everyone make comments about that? Were people very, your fellow students accepting of it? Did they make fun of it? What was the?
Honestly, everybody loved it because they were also, I mean, the rooms were, either very cold or very hot, and that was the case for everyone. I would just, get a little more warm than other people, or more cold. But they loved it. They
were like,
they were very accepting of it.
move it a little to the left, move it a little to the right. They just wanted to get the backdrop. Okay.
Make sure the fan is going all directions. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
That's fun. So I want to touch a little bit on post high school, because I know both of you are. Are you involved in extra things now, or were you in college? And tell me a little bit more about that, because that's a different life now.
Yes, it is. So, I mean, I'm definitely involved in quite a few things, very different things. I do intramurals on campus in the fall semester, and I do volleyball for that as well, obviously. And I'm in a few different clubs. They haven't started up yet, but joined a few of those. And then I also love going to the gym on my free time. That's something that I've picked up recently. And I also have a work study job on campus. So I also do that as well. That's the majority of it.
That's busy. And
Yeah.
and how many credits are you taking?
Oh, I don't know the exact number.
How many classes?
Classes. I have 5 or 6.
Okay.
5 in person, 6 just, you do your stuff on your own time. So it's busy.
Wonderful. Yeah. Very busy.
Yes.
How about you, Emily? What have you done?
My college was definitely not in a traditional sense. I got my associate's degree with some classes on campus, but most of them online. And then I finished my bachelor's degree completely online. But the reason I did that is because there were other activities outside of school that I wanted to participate in, largely volunteer work, largely building what Oscar is. And so I knew that if I were to be at school, be on campus all the time, I wouldn't have the energy, and mostly the energy. I wouldn't have the energy to do those other activities that I really wanted to do. And so I kind of changed my education route to fit that.
Again, 2 very different plans, but very effective. So that's wonderful. Did either of you ever consider taking a gap year between high school and college, or any time in the mix?
There was some talk about it. Just, the summer before going to college, my MS was kind of flaring up, and it was proving not to be so great. So there was definitely talk about it. However, I just decided to go with the standard 4-year plan, but it could still be brought up in the future. Who knows?
Right.
I sort of took a gap year right after high school. However, I was still taking classes. I took classes that were more just for fun. They weren't generals, and they weren't high demand classes. Like I took a intro to American Sign Language course, and I took voice lessons and guitar lessons, and that I just needed 6 credits to be a student at that university. And so I just took a minimum number of credits and just the things that sounded fun at the time. And that was kind of a nice way to take a break from school but continue to move forward in my education. I additionally I studied abroad for a semester, which I earned 12 credits while I was abroad, and it was probably one of the hardest things that I've done. But I had learned by that time to advocate for myself, and to although I wasn't able to apply any sort of IEP to the study abroad program I was in, I was able to tell them, like, if we're going to be in a hot environment, I need something cold. Or is it really important for me to be a part of this activity, or can I take a break and go take a nap? And so it came down to advocating for myself and making sure that I could continue each day.
I'm gonna have Emily tell just a cute story about the time she was in Switzerland, and very few buildings in Switzerland, and at least where they were working, are air conditioned. And it was a particularly warm week. It was
100 degrees.
Yeah, it was very, very warm. And they were rehearsing, and she was part of a musical performance team, and she had to pull herself out and say, I need to cool down. I need to find an activity that's cooler, and tell them what happened.
Yeah, so we got to the venue on the first day of the week, and I was just overwhelmed. I'm like, it is so hot. We have activities planned every single day. I'm not going to be able to keep up. Like I was thinking I'm going to have to be at home the whole week, because I'm already dragging. This is going to be really hard. And so I went to my cast director. So as she said, it was a performance group. I went to my cast director. I said, I don't know how I'm going to do this week. And he said, oh, I have an idea. And he went running away. And a few minutes later, he came back. He said, Emily, I just set up a space for you in the walk-in freezer, and I have jobs for you to do while you're in there. So one of the things that we were selling at one of our shows were like candies on a stick. And so I was in the freezer putting marshmallows on sticks, and like that was my job. And like, they were able to make that accommodation for me. But then during our shows, it was just as hot during the shows. But it was actually probably warmer because we also had the spotlights on us. So, and you're on stage dancing for 2 hours. And so when there were songs that I knew that I really didn't need to be part of, I would make my way back to the freezer, and I would just sing the songs to myself quietly, like making sure that I could keep up with where we were in the show, because I couldn't hear anything. And I'm just sitting in this freezer singing to myself, and then I realize, okay, I'm getting close to the end of that song. I'm gonna go back out on stage and do this next part, and then think ahead to what other song can I sit in the freezer for.
Thinking outside the box, or maybe you were inside the box.
It was definitely in the box. There was no hearing anything from outside the box.
Oh, that is fun.
But just like Allison said, with other people appreciating the fan, There were some of my friends who were like, oh, do you need help making those candy sticks?
Well, last year in my dorm room, I was a freshman last year, so we got the worst of the dorms. And so the ones with no AC. And so I had an air conditioner, and I swear that is the way that I made friends.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, my room became like the hub, and you don't have to tell everybody like, oh, it's because I have MS, blah blah blah. That's the nice part about it. It's very nice. Everybody's appreciative.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Accommodations work in your benefit in so many different ways.
Air conditioners make friends.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Do you have any questions that have come on board? Either Bobia or Deb?
I tried to unmute myself and I took my picture away. No, I don't have any yet. Bobia, I don't know if we got anything yet from Facebook Live, but I got nothing so far from chat or Q&A.
All right.
Nope, not yet.
Okay. Well, if you have questions, please go ahead and send them on in.
Yep.
I just want to mention, I think one of the reasons that we chose this topic for a webinar is because it is so heartbreaking when we hear of people being told that you can't participate in something because you have MS. And having that limitation put on you without being part of the conversation is really hurtful. And it's so important to just stand up for yourself and say, no, I'd like to continue to do this activity, and these are the ways that I think you can help me make that possible. There have been a few of our teenagers in our camps that, ironically, I don't understand why, but for two of them, it was ice hockey. They were told they couldn't play ice hockey, like right after they were diagnosed. You're in a cold area.
Perfect sport that you could probably play as a station.
Yeah.
And one of them was really struggling this summer with being told that, and we were talking with this camper and saying, why not? What can we help you put in place so that you can continue to do this activity that you love?
Yeah. And from a parent perspective, parents, we want to protect our kids. We want to put them in a bubble when they're diagnosed with something like MS, and you want to make sure that they're not doing too much. But on the other hand, I also want to watch my kids do what they can do. And I think, if your child is willing to and ready to get out there and do whatever they can do, my advice is to just let them go and be there to pick up the pieces. We had a lot of activities where Emily would overdo it, and at the end of the day, we'd have to drag her either into the car or back into her bedroom or whatever it took. But over time, you certainly learned, Emily, how to budget your energy a little bit better. And you learned where your limit was and how to stop yourself before you got to that point. And I think without trying it, there was no way that we could find what those limits were. And you certainly would have missed out on a lot of really fun opportunities if we hadn't tried. So as a parent, as hard as it is, just let them go.
I know, Allison, I think it was you that said that you wore a cooling vest, right? Or was it Emily? It was you. So before that, did either one of you come up with other methods to keep yourself cold, like just because I know the cooling vest, people tell me, is just a lifesaver for them. They're able to do so many things, even gardening and camping and stuff that they wouldn't be able to do. So before that, were you able to think of like just fans, tons, like they have those little fans with the misting, and they have the fans with the, around your neck and all kinds of stuff, which I think helps also. So did you use those, both of you?
I did, yeah. I used a lot before the cooling vest. I used a lot of the cooling towels that you would wet and put in the fridge overnight or in the freezer to make it a little quicker. And I would bring those in my bag. I also had access to like the coach's lounge, and they stored my cooling vest in the freezer there, and also like all my towels and such in there. So at school I would have them as well. So for like a home game, I could just hop in there real quick and put everything I needed on.
Perfect.
Allison, you also had a device, an Ember device, did you not?
I do.
Yeah.
I think it's like
this was a Kickstarter product at one time. I honestly haven't followed them as carefully lately, but
yeah.
can you tell us about that?
I did. So after the cooling vest, sometimes the cooling vest for me, because I played such like a nonstop sport, it would get a little heavy when the packs would start to like melt on the court. And so the other thing that I would use is something called an Ember Wave. This is what it looks like. And it just goes on your wrist right here. And you are able to control your body temperature. So yes, it's very cool.
Yeah, it is.
Writing it down right now.
Yeah. So this is something that I would also keep on the side of the bench, or our locker room was right there. And I wouldn't wear it during the game because it is like a device, but on the bench and in the classrooms especially too. This was very helpful. It just looks like an Apple Watch, so it's very discreet as well, which I love.
Wow, how does that work?
So when you put it on your wrist,
Magic.
there's a curve here. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Kind of controls your body temperature a little bit.
I love it.
Through vibrations.
It comes through in waves, so that's why it's called the Ember Wave, I guess. So you can get cooling waves or heat waves. Yeah, this has been my best investment for my MS for sure.
Wow, especially if you're doing sports and you have a sport where you're able to sit on the sidelines for a little bit and regroup with that. That's awesome.
Yes.
Really nice. Okay.
Yeah, Emily, you have one of those in one of our boxes too. We just haven't used it much for you.
Right.
But when I listen to Allison, I'm like, we got to pull that out again and give it a try.
Really? That's amazing. Let me, in case somebody wants to ask a question but doesn't know how to do that, for anybody that hasn't been with us, if you have a question or comment, you can just ask it by using the Q&A button, which is at the bottom in the app. Also, it allows you to ask your question anonymously if you were to choose to do that. You can ask your question live. If you want to raise your hand, there's also that in the app. And you can just do that by clicking the raise hand button, or you just press *9 if you're on your phone. So, and I will unmute you so that you can talk. But we may have some guests that just don't have any questions because you're answering every one of them for them.
Either you go ahead.
I was going to say, you were asking about other things besides a cooling vest, and two other things that I used a lot to help me cool down that weren't a cooling vest and weren't a cooling towel. A frozen water bottle, or even just a cold water bottle. I would stick it between my knees, and that was like the best place to cool down my body the fastest. And ice cream.
Ice cream.
So much ice cream. And watermelon. Watermelon's also very good for cooling you down, but ice cream is better.
We take for granted. I grew up in South Florida and we always had air conditioning. But for places not in South Florida. I guess there's plenty of places where the youth have to grow up doing extracurriculars. They don't even have a cooling area.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine even getting together for a meeting with a ton of people and not having some way to keep yourself warm or keep yourself cold. It has to be really hard and a challenge for anybody that's heat sensitive or cold sensitive. Yeah, that's you don't consider that when you live in a place that's just always available.
Right.
So interesting.
We
I'm
host
thankful
a,
for, I was going to say, I'm thankful for all of the options that are available today.
yeah,
Yeah, way better. Way
we
better.
host a teen camp in the summer in July, and it's usually typically one of the warmest weeks in summer. It just happens to be that way. And when we are not in an air-conditioned building or in water, we have a cooler that we keep with us that is filled with the neck coolers. So, and the kids know that they can just go and take one of those anytime. It's always fun the first time that somebody really discovers it and pulls one out of the cooler and they throw it on their neck, and the look on their face is just, oh, and everyone else looks at them like, well, wait a minute.
Especially the ones from like other countries.
Yeah,
Not necessarily seen one of those before. They're always
right.
amazed by it.
It's-
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I've always been sensitive to heat, so I only have a few minutes outside that I can handle. And when I put one of those on my body, it is just, you're right, that look, it's just heaven, heaven. And it's like instant heaven. It's not even like
Yeah.
you gotta wait a couple seconds. Yes,
And couple that with ice cream. Oh my goodness.
with ice cream. Today happens to be National Coffee Flavored Ice Cream Day.
Really? That was
Wow.
my favorite.
I saw that coffee flavored ice cream day. Yep. Yep.
It's like the ultimate energy booster. It's cold and it's coffee, you know?
I don't know if any of you have tried this during your activities, if you own one, but the caps and the hats that also have the cooling device on the inside, glorious. Just glorious.
Is that right?
Oh my gosh. Just like the neck where you put it on and immediately, no
Yeah.
matter what you're doing outside, no matter what activity you're doing, if you put that hat on and it sits on your head, within seconds, you feel completely different. So
Okay. I'm
don't
sold.
have one. And we actually, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation has a cooling program during a certain time of the year, and you can apply for one of those. So
There you go, Emily.
Emily, Allison, next
Oh.
time it opens, someone should apply. So yeah, they're really good. Anyway, so no, we don't have any questions. I don't know if you guys have anything else that you wanted to add before we go.
I want to thank Allison for taking some time today and being part of this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Okay, so I'm going to do my little goodbye. It does bring us to the end of our time. If you've missed any part of this conference, it has been recorded and will be available through the MS Focus Facebook and YouTube channels practically forever. You can watch this and benefit. Reply to your registration email for information on how to access the recordings, or sign up for our newsletter to learn about upcoming events. Our next teleconference is going to be Ask the Physical Therapist with Dr. Herb Karpatkin. He's once again going to be answering all of your physical therapy questions. He has a whole hour and it just goes one after another. It's actually very cool. He's great. The date is this coming Monday, September 19th, and the time is 4:00 p.m. Eastern. As you leave the conference today, a survey will appear on your screen. We ask that you just take a moment to give us your feedback on this program and your suggestions for any future topics, so we can try to provide the best and the most meaningful programs for you. Our sincere thanks to all of you for your participation, and especially to the Mr. Oscar Monkey team. We really appreciate everyone for coming and helping us today educate everyone. So goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much, Emily and Andrea and Oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart.
Allison.
And Allison, I've only said the name 10 times. Thank you so much. We look forward to the next time.